My name is Sarah. Welcome to Write More Light with the Midwest Writing Center. I just recorded this same video live and the recording did not go well, so forgive me if I sound like I've said this before. But today we're going to be talking about depression and mental health in general as it relates to writing and other art. The thing that I titled this video is Help! I quit writing a long time ago and I'm depressed, which doesn't sound so much like the rest of our video titles where I try to be crafty. But it's a super, super important topic that I think we don't talk about enough, and it affects us as writers a lot, and I've been talking about it with friends a lot lately. And it seems like we're all being affected as creators by our mental health. I'm going to focus mostly on depression and anxiety, but I don't want to discount other mental health issues at all because they all do affect us in our creative processes. At the end of the video, as always, I will talk about the upcoming events at the Midwest Writing Center. I will leave time for a free write in this recording, but I just did the free write in the live session, so I may not stay online for it. We'll see. So first things first, there's a terrible stigma around talking about mental health, and we know that. We obviously know that, and it's garbage. We don't make any progress with anything by ignoring it. I want to also state for the record that these are either things that I have dealt with or tried for remedying my own writing paralysis as it is related to depression and anxiety, or it's things that other writers or artists have told me help them. I don't know which comes first with not writing and mental health. I think it totally depends on an individual basis whether or not the chicken or the egg came first. Whether or not we quit writing and then we're out of a writing habit as we get depressed, or we get depressed and then we quit writing. I think they just happen. It just happens, and we get to this place where we're not creating. So, yeah, this is a difficult topic to talk about with the weight it deserves. I will obviously be going about this in the way that I do my normal videos, but I want it to have the weight it deserves. This is something I take very seriously. It's something that I struggle with myself, and I don't want to discount any of that while, talking about like step by step, here's how it goes. So please keep that in mind. Yeah, so first, depression symptoms that contribute to our stopping our productivity with our art. We get a loss of willpower as we get depressed, a loss of spoons. If you're not familiar with the spoon theory, I do recommend you look it up. I'm going to give a real rough cliff notes of it, which is basically that you have a limited number of spoons in your kitchen, and each task that you have to do each day is costs a spoon. Some days, you have more clean spoons than others, but everything you do costs. And so sometimes we're out of spoons and we have to take care of our hierarchy of needs first, right? I will not survive without eating, and writing has to fall to the wayside when you deal with the actual physical needs of survival. There's a general heaviness that comes along with being depressed or anxious, where it takes a lot of effort to do simple things. And like, so if you're having trouble getting dressed, then it's going to be a lot harder to write. When you're depressed, it's hard to care about things. It's just that takes energy, and the energy's not there. And it's also hard to act because that takes energy, and the energy's not there. The complication with Anxiety, of course, is that you care and then you're paralyzed by the weight of action. So it's totally valid to stop making art when you're not doing well. But I think the act of creating is part of our identity when we're artists, when we're writers, and that causes it to get worse. So we're going to work on how to get out of that one teeny that one rut um, that will not take care of the others, but it might help. Um, Things that lead us to stop our writing are, first, inaction leads to inaction. So maybe we go one day without writing, and then we go another day without writing, and then we can't remember the last time we wrote. That often leads to shame, which, again, paralyzes us into this place where we can't write. Then we add pressure on ourselves because you're supposed to be a writer. Why aren't you writing? Why aren't you writing? Why aren't you writing? And that adds to shame, and that adds to anxiety, and that paralyzes us in this place of inaction. And then the other thing that we talk about a lot, I think, in the writing world, how we're our own worst critic, but we judge our own quality, and whether or not it's true that if you don't use it, you lose it. Being out of practice, does make you forget the different things that you used to do or find worked well for you. And we have to silence that judge if we're ever going to be ending the paralyzation that stops us from writing. At the end of the day, the important thing is that we start making art again. And some of the pressure things I'm going to address are, you can't worry about the quality of your writing if there's no writing. So you have to write before you can worry about the quality. You can't worry about your audience and what they will read if there's no writing to be read. This is obviously much easier said than done, and I will not undermine that. I know it's much easier said than done, but we need to do our best to silence those fears, or at least silence those fears. But we need to do our best to get them out of our heads. That voice that is judging us for our inaction or judging us for our poor quality needs to be shut off or turned down, or ignored as best we can ignore them. We need to do our best to get those out of our heads. In the moments of creation, we need to be the only thing that exists. If what you're writing deals with the outside world, totally. But I will always talk about putting the pen to paper. I handwrite, but when I say that, whatever the physical act of writing is to you is what I mean. So the only thing that can exist in those moments, or at least the thing that we need to try, is to be the only thing that exists in those moments is you and your pen and paper. It's really hard to silence those voices. I often am just in my head. Shut up, this isn't about you. Just keep writing. Just keep writing. Just write something. I have a lot of notes, so that's what the page turning's about in my looking this way. So I want to talk about steps to get back into it. It's hard. It's really hard, and depression will make it harder. But you need to forgive yourself. That's impossible. But so important. It's easier said than done, yes, but life requires constant self-forgiving, especially in your art. That life requires constant self-forgiving is a quote from author, fiction writer Arthur Nersessian, which I have found to be true in life, but especially in art. You need to forgive yourself for not producing so that you can move on. Don't start believing it's okay, but forgive yourself. you need to take away the pressure. Again, easier said than done because fighting with yourself is a losing battle every time. No pressure, just pens. Um, I want to look at this as a self-care thing. You know, there's two ideas about self-care, and there's the maintenance, the things you have to do that count as self-care, and then there's the like luxury idea where taking a bath is self-care, and sometimes the luxury things are just straight up impossible, and sometimes they're the only things that are possible. I would say like binging TV is probably one of those things, where you know the maintenance stuff is like taking a shower. Writing can fall into either of those categories. Physically speaking, we don't need it to survive, right? But also we sometimes do. Our identities are often wrapped up in our art, and so if the writing isn't providing you catharsis, if you are too tense to get into it in the first place, do your best to get into like a chill zone. Maybe that's chamomile, maybe that's a bath, um, maybe that's a walk. You know, I don't know your life. I don't know how easy it is for you to be alone, or that's a little more loaded than I meant for it to be. I mean, I don't know if it's possible for you to have alone time. I don't know if you need alone time to create or to be chill. Maybe, maybe the problem is having so much isolation. You know, 2020 has been really freaking hard in every single way. Um, yeah. So do your best to get yourself in a slightly calmer state before you sit down, and no pressure, just pen. Um, do your best to be chill so that you can be just a machine that writes. You know, you don't need your brain to be on full action mode when you sit down to write. Not right now. This is a two-parter. This is baby steps, but also goals. And part of us having those terrible voices in our heads is that if you set a goal that's small, you might yell at yourself for setting a bad goal. Um, oh well. You can't have goals that are too hard if you expect to accomplish them, especially when you're not doing well. So these are real things, real goals that I've set for myself. Um, there's a video I made previously on the David R. Collins advice: do one thing every day to further your writing. And that thing doesn't have to be the physical act of writing. That can be thinking about a piece you want to work on. That can be making a list of 20 pieces you want to work on. That can be um, you know, making up character names, world building in your head. Just do one thing every day to further your writing, and um, that's a goal that I've made for myself. And like, you know, check it off a box. Check it off a box. If you have a physical list, that counts. That absolutely counts, because this is about getting back into being an artist, seeing yourself as an artist, and creating. Baby steps and little goals are really, really important. Another goal that I've really legitimately set for myself is writing for 5 minutes a day. I've also done 15 minutes. I know that in NaNoWriMo they do sprints, which are, I think, like 20, 30-minute writing time blocks. This one's a little more difficult, at least for me. Like, can you get an accountability buddy? Something that I find helpful with the Midwest Writing Center, we have these writer studio events every first and third Saturday of the month. And for me, it's helpful that the person keeping me accountable is not like a close friend who I can be like, oh, well, they know me and they know that I am busy and therefore I don't feel like I have to be accountable to that person. Maybe I'm a bad friend. So I think that's a hard one. A hard goal is to have an accountability buddy, but it is also something that's really helpful for me. And an outside pressure is really helpful to me. I'm not so reliable if I'm only answering to myself. Another thing, this is really hit or miss for me. For a second, Uh, this is really hit or miss for me, but um, setting an alarm works for a lot of people where, you can pick up your phone and give it the voice command. I have no idea how to do this in the manual way, but, every day at 3 p.m., an alarm goes off and says, write for 10 minutes. That works for some people, and 10 minutes is a dope goal. The point is to get the words out. I had the most beautiful advice. Maybe not advice, that some of the best advice I've ever heard. I heard on Sunday. I'm taking a workshop with Public Space One, and the instructor said the art will take as long as it takes. And maybe you've heard that before. Maybe I've heard it before, but this was the first time it really resonated, and the first time I internalized it. The art will take as long as it takes. So maybe you've abandoned a project that you're really, really passionate about, and you're feeling really guilty about that, but the art will take as long as it takes. The piece isn't done because the piece isn't done, and that's okay. The art will take as long as it takes. And maybe it's just not time for that piece to be done. But you do have to get back to it. And that's what we're working on here. The first step to getting back into your projects is getting back into your art. This is advice I give a lot for writer's block. I use quotes here because writer's block is a technical term, but for all intents and purposes, you know what I mean. We do have a video on writer's block if you want to look into that, but the advice that I give a lot of the time is just write, just journal. It doesn't matter if the thing that you're writing is, I'm trying to write, this is me trying to write, why is this so hard to do? And just, let your inner monologue and inner critic bleed out of the pen. It's okay. The point is, you got something on paper and it counts. It absolutely counts. You got something out on paper. It exists and it's real, and that's writing. Even if it's not the art that you were hoping to create, even if it's not the project that you want to be working on, it counts, and you deserve to feel good about that. Something, and you can contact me. Maybe I'll make a video about this at some point, though it's not really writing related. But when I've had goals before, I've created a list of rewards that don't cost money, partially because I just don't have a lot of money, and partially because that's like a slippery slope for rewards. Like, are you going to ground yourself from spending, or like, are you going to make yourself go broke buying things? Like, it's a slippery slope when you use money to reward yourself. But you can make a list of things to reward yourself with once you have earned them. You wrote for 1 day, and then you wrote for 3 days, and you wrote for 5 days, you wrote for a month, whatever it is. I think it's important to write every day. I don't think that you have to write every day to be a writer. I think for me, writing more days than not is the goal. So whatever it is, that's a good reward for that. Food is also probably a slippery slope of a reward, but like, ice cream gets me excited. So maybe I'm grounded from ice cream unless I get my writing done. So here's a big one. Part of depression and anxiety is that your focus is just trash. Maybe you haven't made it this far into the video because your focus is trash. I apologize. If you can, read. But read for pleasure. Don't read the thing that you've been trying to read that's not going well for you. Don't read like work stuff. Read for pleasure. Read your guilty pleasure genre. Read comics. I meant newspaper comics, but graphic novels are dope and for some reason undervalued as a art form. Read a magazine. Read something non-literary. Read someone's blog. Read a cookbook. I really like reading cookbooks when I'm not doing well. There's text in them. It's not just recipes, especially like when I'm not doing well, it's really hard to cook. But for whatever reason, reading cookbooks is fun for me. Um, what's important here, what's important is getting art into your life. And that is, if you don't have the focus to read even a couple of pages of the Calvin and Hobbes anthology that you've got on your shelf, you don't have one of those, you should. Uh, what's important here is getting art into your life and into your brain. Engaging with any art you can, whether or not you're a writer, is important. When I've been at my worst focus-wise, I have, one time I had been wondering for a long time who Jean-Michel Basquiat was. And I just looked him up on my search engine of choice and just opened up the large size images and just looked at the pictures. And that counts. You're getting art into your life by doing that. You can do, especially in 2020, since everything's gone virtual, you can do like a museum tour online for as long as your focus lasts. Don't make yourself feel bad if you can't last the 3 hours of a virtual museum tour. Spending 3 hours in a museum is emotional labor. Great art takes a lot of energy out of you, even if it's not reading. Whatever it is that counts as art for you, I would say, avoid binge watching the show that you always binge watch, or watching, like, I don't know how to say this. Don't watch the TV that you normally watch. But, if there's a play that you always wanted to read that's a movie, watch the movie version. I get really excited when Shakespeare gets turned into movies because it's hard to read. I can admit that. I do also like noting that Shakespeare was not highbrow at the time when he was writing. That helps. And that's something that's made evident when you see his plays performed, because like there's just a lot of jokes that I don't get until I see them performed, and I'm like, oh, that was inappropriate. And maybe you're not paying attention to the words. I mean, try, but great acting is entertaining, and that's getting art into your life, into your heart, into your brain. Listen to your favorite album or your favorite song on repeat, whatever it takes. I don't mean put it on as background music and go about your depression habits. I mean, listen to it. It's your favorite for a reason. You don't have to listen to it on repeat. Listen to it just once. That's getting art into your life, into your brain, into your heart. Also, it is fine to play it as background music if that's what you can do. Just do what you can to get art into your life. It counts. It's putting you back on the track of creating. So for this part, I'm going to read, and I may have to cut this. I couldn't find it online. That's why I'm reading to you rather than screen sharing or sharing the writer reading it. Get into position. I'm going to be reading an essay from Henny Fabdurraqib's They Can't Kill Us Until They Kill Us. It is very short. It is less than 2 pages. I had it bookmarked for when I made this video earlier, and now it is gone. It's about depression. It is about why we're not making our best art when we're not doing well. It's about romanticizing depression in artists, and it's very, very important. It's something that I refer to a lot when I'm not doing well, partially because it's so short, and I promise it'll take less than 5 minutes for me to read. There's about a half a paragraph on the next page, so very short. So let's get into it. Brief notes on staying, or no one is making their best work when they want to die. I don't mean sadness as much as I mean the obsession with it. Once, on the wrong edge of the bridge, a boy I knew who played songs let his feet slip off. I found a tape of his after he was gone, and the music sounded sweeter, or at least I told myself it did. What I really want to do is say that life is impossible, and the lie we tell ourselves is that life is too short. Life, if anything, is too long. We accumulate too much along the way, too many heartbreaks, too many funerals, too many physical setbacks. It's a miracle any of us survive at all. I know that I stopped thinking about extreme grief as the sole vehicle for great art when grief started taking people with it. I'm going to repeat that line. I stopped thinking about extreme grief as the sole vehicle for great art when the grief started to take people with it. And I get it. The tortured artist is the artist that gets remembered for all time, particularly if they either perish or overcome. But the truth is that so many of us are stuck in the middle. So many of us begin tortured and end tortured with only brief bursts of light in between. And I'd rather have average art and survival than miracles that come at the cost of someone's life. There will always be something great and tragic to celebrate, and I'm wondering now if I've had enough. I am, of course, in favor of letting all grief work through the body and manifest itself creatively. But what I'm less in favor of is the celebration of pain that might encourage someone to mine deeper into that unforgiving darkness until it is impossible for them to climb out. I'm less in favor of anything that hurts and then becomes theater if that theater isn't also working to heal the person experiencing that pain. I'm going to repeat that line. I'm less in favor of anything that hurts and then becomes theater if that theater isn't also working to heal the person experiencing pain. I, too, am somewhat obsessed with watching creations that feel like work. I'm less drawn to the artist who at least appears to make it look easy. But our best work is the work of ourselves, our bodies, and the people who want us to keep pushing, even if the days are long and miserable, even if there are moments when the wrong side of the bridge beckons you. All things do not pass. Sometimes that which does not kill you sits heavy over you until all the things that did not kill you turn into a single counterforce that might. No matter what comes out of a person in these times, the work that we make when we feel like we no longer want to be alive is not the best work if it is also not work that little by little is pushing us back toward perhaps staying, even if just for a moment. I'm going to repeat that line. The work that we make when we feel like we no longer want to be alive is not the best work if it is also not work that is pushing us back toward perhaps staying, even if just for a moment. What I'm mostly saying, friends, is that I've lost too much, and everything sounds good when you know it was the last thing a person would ever make. All the words sit more perfect on the page when they are the last words. What I'm mostly saying, friends, is that I am sad today. I am sad today, and I may be sad tomorrow. But I watched a video where rappers hung out of the roof of a car and threw money in slow motion, and it made me briefly consider another type of freedom. I am sad today, but I held in my hands a picture of me on a day when I was not sad. In it, the sunlight leaked over my face in a city I love, and my eyes were wide and eager. I am sad yesterday, and I might be sad tomorrow, and even the day after. But I will be here, looking for a way out every time. Staying is not always a choice, and I have lived and lost enough to know that. But the way I think about grief is that it is the great tug of war, and sometimes the flag is on the side you don't want it to be on. And sometimes the game has exhausted all of its joy, and all that's left is you on your knees. But today, even though I am sad, my hands are still on the rope. I am making my best work when my hands are on the rope, even if I'm not pulling back. Life is too long, despite the cliche, too long and sometimes too painful, but I imagine I have made it too far. I imagine somewhere around the corner, the best part is still coming. A really important takeaway for me from this piece is keeping your hands on the rope. Obviously, we romanticize people like Van Gogh. We talk about the 27 Club, which is all these rock stars that die young, as if that's magical. I think creating art, creating writing, the act of it alone is putting your hands on that rope in that tug of war. It's the most important thing we can do, I think, is keep your hands on the rope. And the act of creation is inherently in opposition to decay, to death. So that's, obviously that's an amazing piece, but that's a really important takeaway for me. As long as we try to create, or try at all in any way, we're keeping our hands on the rope. And we're getting a step closer to our identity, a step closer to the work that we want to be making. And we're fighting. We're in defiance of all that would hold us back. In the Facebook comments, I dropped a bunch of resources for mental health support. Obviously, there's the National Institute of Health has a National Institute for Mental Health. There are a bunch of text and call hotlines. Here in the Quad Cities, we have our own branch of NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Illness. It's NAMI, Mississippi Valley. Those are out there for the taking, for you to take. I'll throw them in the YouTube description too. I'll figure out how to do that. The writing prompt for today is to respond to a favorite character or author. Journal on their influence, or just journal. I want this free write to be for you. This isn't about working on that story. This isn't about having a great prompt to start a great poem. This is about putting words on paper. If even that may be too hard, put ink on paper. It doesn't matter so much what comes, so much as that something comes. I'll repeat this prompt in a minute. I will do it with you, even though I said I might not. And yeah, so the upcoming events at the Meadows Writing Center, as always, we have the first and third Saturdays of the month. We do our Writer's Studio. That's a critique group and also just a writing group where we talk about our struggles with writing and our triumphs with writing and critique each other's work. We'll give you that code to join. It's a Zoom meeting from 11 to 1 on Central Standard Time on Zoom. We also have our Foster Stall chapbook series deadline has been extended to New Year's Eve, 12/31/20, and we have our 2020 Disaster Anthology deadline is January 31. So submit to those. Now back to, I moved my notebook, here it is. Back to that prompt. Respond to a favorite character or a writer. Journal on their influence, or just journal. Remember, this is for you. This is to put ink on a page. I'm going to be writing in response to, and this is just 5 minutes. Sometimes it feels like a long time. Earlier today when I did this, 5 minutes felt like a long time. Sometimes it feels like no time, which is nice. I'm going to be responding to that piece that I just read, Brief Notes on Staying by Hanif Abdurraqib. It means a lot to me, and it gets me thinking, and sometimes during these free writes I periodically talk to the camera, so forgive me for that if that bothers you. Turn the volume off if you're done with me, but of course, as always, write more light into your life. And here we have Can't get comfortable. Got 45 seconds left. As per usual, this really turned into just journaling for me, but that counts. That's okay. I think I forgot in the second recording to mention that sometimes the block that I get in my writing is I may think and feel like I'm able to make creative work, and the only thing that comes out is journaling. But after getting the gross feelings out, something better can come later. I know this is difficult, and I'm really grateful for you sitting here with me and keeping your hands on the rope. Please reach out. We're at the Midwest Writing Center. We're a community resource for anyone with an appreciation for the written word. And let us know what your needs may be in the creative world. As always, write more light into your life.